All right. So here we are in Academic Search Ultimate, and we already did some basic keyword searching. And you can see that we're up to 584 results, which is a pretty large results list. So now we're going to try to narrow it down more to get it pretty specific to our topic. One thing, if I am in an EBSCOhost platform, is I often go to page options and detailed. And what that will do is put the abstract or the summary of the article right on the front page. So you can kind of figure out what an article is about right away rather than having to click in and out of the title. But here are some things that you can do to kind of narrow a results list from this. So if you look over on the left-hand side, you can see that there's the option of scholarly peer-reviewed. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And I'm sure you've already talked about or read about peer-reviewed and why that might be helpful in your research. But for the case of my topic, I'm choosing peer-reviewed because I would like to have scholarly research on the topic of homelessness and college students. And so what that means is that I went ahead and say I'm an author. I'm a researcher. I wrote an article, I sent it into an editor. The editor read it, said, this is really great, correct a few things, and you're in my journal. So that's a non-peer-reviewed journal. Now, if I'm going to submit to a peer-reviewed journal, I send it in, the editor sees it, says, oh, I think this is good enough to go onto our panel of reviewers. So then it will go to however many, let's say 3 to 5 people who are subject matter experts. So they also have done research or very familiar with the topic of homelessness, and they're sociologists. So they're going to go and look over your paper and say, oh, you did your research correctly. It followed the standards of sociology. You don't have a ton of mistakes, and you seem to have added more to the conversation of homelessness. They then will give me, 20 corrections, send it back and say, fix this and resubmit. You resubmit. After you make those corrections, they look at it and say, okay, here are a few things more. Okay, you take it back, you fix it, and then they say, hey, welcome to our journal. So why you would want that is that's pretty rigorous for evaluation, right? So you as a student researcher can know that something that is peer-reviewed has gone through a pretty rigorous evaluation process in order to get into that journal. And by clicking that peer-reviewed, I went down about 100 articles, right? You also can change the date. So some people like to use the slider, but I tend to go ahead and just use the keyboard. I'm randomly choosing a 5-year period because I want to know what's recently been done on the research of homelessness and college students. Depending on your topic, that may be a broader date range. It just depends. Now I am down to 309, and I'd say that's a pretty manageable list. So now what I would do is start going through and figuring out what articles I kind of like. And to do this, I would go ahead and say, oh my gosh, this looks like a really good one. I click on it and I want to save it. Now you're probably most likely on an individual computer, so you could save it to your computer and rename the file so you know what it is. Or you could email it to yourself, you can save it to Google Drive. There also is this citation option, which is really handy. And you can scroll down and find MLA, and you could copy and paste. Now, the only caveat that I have here is that it's not always 100% correct, so it saves you on a lot of typing and formatting. Go ahead, copy and paste it, but then go ahead and double check that it actually meets all of the MLA standards. I also can find myself, say I really like this article, right? So another way that I can get a better results list is by looking at the actual database terms. Go back to the beginning and remember when I said that every database has a different vocabulary. And if I want to get a very specific results list that is more like this, I might want to use the subject terms, or think of it as the database terms that will get me a little bit closer to my topic. So it looks like homeless is a subject area, college students. And so you can go like this and click on the title. And you'll see that the subject terms are hyperlinked. So I could start a whole new topic if I wanted. a whole new search. So what this does, I'm going to click it and it says make homelessness the major part of all of the articles you return to me. And then I am going to use college students or university students or undergraduates as keywords. And I'm going to hit search. And now I'm down to a much smaller list because the main part of the article has to be about homelessness. Another way that you can narrow it is off to the left-hand side, is go over here to the subject thesaurus term and click on it. And you'll see that, okay, so of this list, of my results list, I want another major part of my results list to actually be about descriptive statistics. So statistics that talk about the problem, because maybe I want to get some numbers to back up my opinions or things that I've found in my research. Notice how we went down to 55. So now it should be a bunch of articles that talk about homelessness, college students, and specifically statistics. Or if you want to know what the database terms are, you can go up here to subject terms. Depending on what database you're in, it can be different. It can be named subject terms, it could be thesaurus, it could be subjects. It just depends, but all of it really means is thesaurus. So I am going to, so say I want to know the difference between, I want to look at research that looks at the difference between male and females and homelessness. So what is that term for studies that look at the difference between male and females? Offhand, I'm going to say gender differences. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Okay, so it looks like it might be gender differences. Go ahead and click on it, and you'll see that it'll tell you about what this term means. And if that's not right, you might want to go to a broader term. So just look at gender in general, not necessarily the difference between the two. Or you can have narrower terms, but I'm going to go ahead and say gender differences, and I'm going to click the box and say add. That takes it up to this main search box. And now again, it's going to say that all of the articles that you return have to be, the main part has to look at the gender differences between college students or university students or undergraduates and homelessness or homeless, sure. And notice how it's pre-populating there. What that's doing is that's just saying that someone else like you or I has gone ahead and put in a synonym term or whatever, and it's recorded keystrokes. So sometimes if I can't think of a synonym, I just put homelessness and see what someone else has already come up with. Okay, so now we're gonna hit search. And it brought us down to 5, so that's super narrow. One way that you can still get at the idea is to take away subject terms. So now the database is treating this like a keyword. So we had 5 when we said treat this like a subject term. Let's see if it gets bigger if we just treat it like a keyword. And it does. Notice how now we have 42 results. What this means is there's just some talk of gender differences in the article, but it may not be the main concept in the article. Okay, so what that is once you have, what we've done is once you have a pretty basic keyword search, these are ways to change your search to better your results, make them more narrow to what your topic actually is, or if you have a topic where you need to search different parts of it, because notice how I did different searches. I started with homelessness and I was like, ooh, I need to narrow it to college students. Then I thought, ooh, you know, what about if I look at the differences between genders and homelessness in college students? So I had to search that separately. Or I looked at homelessness, college students, and then I was like, well, what statistics are out there about that? So you can do multiple searches to go ahead and piece your research together in a database.